Hello and welcome to the Visionary Leaders Community Call. My name is Erin Fugate and I'm one of the founding members of the Visionary Leaders Collective. And we are so happy that you're listening with us today, whether you're on the call live, say hello if you're live, if you're listening to the replay over on Apple, Spotify, or maybe the YouTube. We're happy that you're here. So every Monday we get together and for the first 30 minutes, we talk about a health and wellness subject. And for the second 30 minutes, we talk about sharing your love of essential oils and the doTERRA wellness products so that you can earn an income. And everyone is welcome. We are always going to start with a little meditation on our oil of the week. And so this week it's helichrysum. If you have your helichrysum bottle, go ahead and grab it. You can do the 5 milliliter, or there's a helichrysum touch. And today we chose helichrysum because it is very soothing and good for the heart. It's a heart tonic, but it also starts any type of deep emotional healing that you might have. And you definitely want it on hand for little bruises, cuts, any kind of wound. I'm always going to put helichrysum on it. So let's take our bottle of helichrysum and put a drop in your hand. Rub your hand together and let your eyes close. And just as you're rubbing your hands together, it's going to warm up that oil and the aromatic molecules will be released. Let them wash over your senses. Take a few deep inhales of that aroma. And feel where it travels in your body. What area of your body is asking for helichrysum? And ask helichrysum what healing element it has for you today. When I smell it, I feel it in my head, in my brain. So I'm going to take that to mean it's good for my brain today. So I'll take a final inhale, really bringing that aroma up into my brain. And I always like to offer a little gratitude to the plant and the people that help to grow the helichrysum. Helichrysum comes from the Mediterranean, and it loves to be wildcrafted. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. Feel like we're in a field of helichrysum. It's so beautiful. And when you're ready, Aisha, I'm happy to start the call with your PowerPoint if you want. So today we have a very special subject in store for you. Ariana Harley and Aisha Harley, the Harley sisters, also two women that are incredible healers and have a ton of knowledge and experience that they are really excited to share with you today. They're going to be talking about heart health and the intersection between heart health, heartbreak, loneliness, and epigenetics. So this one is going to be juicy. You're going to want to take some notes, but they made a PowerPoint today because there is so much to share. You can go to the next slide. We also wanted to let you know what's coming in March. March, we have a beautiful theme. It's going to be all about the spring, new beginnings, digestive health. It's a great time to cleanse if you've been thinking about cleansing. So make sure you put it on your calendar for March. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Ariana and Aisha Harley.
Oh, I got to get myself off of mute. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariana Harley, and I am so excited to start this conversation today. I'm calling it a conversation because it's a really huge topic. It's one that I am just absolutely fascinated with. And please share what you're learning, your experiences, your knowledge in the chat. if you're live with us today. And if you are joining us on the podcast, we are sharing a PowerPoint, but I will also be reading the slides so that you will know what we're talking about as well. So let's start off with really my intention first. When I was thinking about talking about epigenetics, my intention was to shed some light on our agency that we have concerning not only our bodies and our lives, but that of future generations. So as a mother, I wish that I knew what I know now when my daughter was born, before she was born even. But I know it now, so let's talk about it now. She's 19, and I want her to learn these things too, because we really do have agency to do what I also call generational healing. And that makes me so inspired and excited. So what is epigenetics? If you're not familiar with the term, it is the study of how your behaviors and your environment can cause changes that affect the way that your genes work. Unlike genetic changes, epigenetic changes are reversible and do not change your DNA sequence, but they can change how your body reads a DNA sequence. So that's really important. So when I grew up and learned in biology, I learned, DNA, you're born with it and you got what you got, right? And you're just crossing your fingers. That was before we had so much testing and 23andMe and stuff like that, that you're crossing your fingers and going, I hope that I didn't inherit, any kind of genetics that are going to give me a disease. But what's so amazing about this information is that although it is true we cannot change our DNA, we can change the way that things are turned off and on in our bodies, and we have some more agency than we first suspected. And so that is epigenetics. And then epigenetic inheritance is another term that might be new to you. And what that is an unconventional finding. And it goes against the idea that inheritance happens only through the DNA. So that's what I was just talking about, the DNA code that passes from parent to offspring. It means that a parent's experiences in the form of epigenetic tags can be passed down to future generations. And you can go ahead and change that slide now, Aisha. And so there is a study that has been done, and if you're joining us live, you'll see a photo of a woman with some babies. And it's a picture of Holocaust survivors in a displaced persons camp in Germany after World War II. And I wanted to talk about this study because it was absolutely mind-blowing to me. So Dr. Rachel Yehuda, a neuroscientist at the James J. Peters Veterans Affairs Medical Center in the Bronx, New York, and I found this study off of the Veterans Affairs page, has spent decades studying the biological roots of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder in relation to veterans, Holocaust survivors, and other trauma victims. Many Holocaust survivors have had PTSD and other emotional disorders, and it's well known that children of traumatized people are at an increased risk of PTSD. Yehuda, long eager to study the children of concentration camp survivors, took the connection one step further in research published on September 1st, 2016 in Biological Psychiatry. She and her colleagues showed for the first time in humans that epigenetic changes caused by exposure to trauma can be passed on to children born after the event. In this case, Holocaust survivors and their adult children, epigenetic processes alter the expression of a gene without producing changes in the DNA sequence and can be transmitted to the next generation. And so this is so powerful. And as a mother, it breaks my heart to know that, if we're going through trauma, that our children can also inherit the epigenetics of that. But we are going to offer you some rays of hope too. So don't get too distressed. But this is really powerful. And then I wanted to speak to another study. So this observation that or this is the same study, excuse me. So a little continuing on the study, the observation that the changes in a parent and child are in opposing directions suggests that children of traumatized parents are not simply born with PTSD like biology. Dr. John Crystal, a research psychiatrist at the VA Connecticut healthcare system and the editor of Biological Psychiatry, said in a news release, the children may inherit traits that promote resilience as well as vulnerability. That I'm going to read again because this is powerful. The children may inherit traits that promote resilience as well as the vulnerability. In any case, these findings indicate it may be possible to distinguish changes associated with early adverse experiences in offspring from those linked to trauma of past generations. The study raises important questions about intergenerational transmission of traits from traumatized parents to their children, says Crystal, himself the son of a Holocaust survivor. The observation that the same genes might be affected in parents and children suggests that something specific, perhaps related to the stress response, is being conveyed from parent to child. So, wow, this is so powerful. I also just want to acknowledge that in many Indigenous cultures, there has been other ways of describing this. We talk about generational healing. I mentioned that earlier as one. And so this knowledge is not actually new to us. It is known to many cultures. It has just been explained differently. But I love science. And so if you want to take the story of science into this conversation, then we have this research, right, which only further confirms the importance of our generational inheritance that we get. And then I'm going to hand it off to Aisha, and she's going to talk a little bit. We're going to be speaking of heartbreak. We're going to be speaking of loneliness. And then because these are hard things that impact us, right, so deeply, like the trauma of being in a concentration camp, heartbreaking and profound. And we're going to talk about the resilience part 2 in just a little bit.
Thank you, Ariana. Hello, everybody. I want to bring your attention to this beautiful image on the screen. I'm sorry for those listening to the recording, you can't see the image, but this is actually an image of a dear friend of mine's heart that was broken right before he had open heart surgery. And it was an image that was made for him in the hospital. And one of the technicians actually likes to create art out of the images. So I thought that was just a beautiful image of a heart, but that heart is technically a broken heart. So, you know, I believe to be human and to experience love, right? We all strive to experience love. Sooner or later, we will also experience heartbreak. I think it's just part of our human journey. Emily Dickinson says, parting is all we know of heaven and all we need of hell. My therapist once said, we are all just one person away from a nervous breakdown. And I know this firsthand, as along with the past years of COVID and all of the collective trauma we suffered, mine was also filled with debilitating, bathroom floor, overwhelming, and all-encompassing heartbreak. With all I have been through in my lifetime, from serious illness and loss, I believe the heartbreaks I have endured to truly be the most difficult and painful times in my life. Raise your hand if you can relate to that. Losing those that we love, whether romantic or otherwise, is simply the worst kind of pain. Heartbreak can be debilitating and a certain kind of hell that honestly, it's hard to find any relief from. So one of the things that I do when I'm in crisis is I love to learn and read and watch YouTube videos and dive in and research and learn about whatever it is I'm going through. So and I also want to say that if this is something that you're going through right now in your own life, please know that you're not alone. And I do know, and I continue to tell myself this because I'm still navigating through this a bit, that oftentimes beautiful gifts can emerge from these periods of darkness. So I want to share some interesting scientific facts about heartbreak. Heartbreak shares all of the hallmarks of grief, insomnia, intrusive thoughts, and can create immune system dysfunction. 40% of people that experience heartbreak also experience measurable depression. Heartbreak is a complex psychological injury that impacts us in a multitude of ways. Hold on, there's somebody that needs to be admitted. There we go. And this I found very interesting. Brain studies have shown that the withdrawal of romantic love actually activates the same mechanisms in our brain that get activated when addicts are withdrawing from substances like cocaine or opioids. And since you are unable to be with the person, or our unconscious mind will choose the methadone of one's memories, which actually gives you a fix. So every time you go back and think about the memory or look at a photo or look at a Facebook feed, you're actually activating that in your brain. And this is what makes heartbreak so difficult to heal and can be so insidious. And it actually deepens your emotional pain. And this makes your recovery process very difficult. Then when heartbreak happens, these hormone levels drop and are replaced with stress hormones such as cortisol. This is designed to support your body's fight or flight response, and too much cortisol over a period of time can contribute to anxiety, nausea, acne, and weight gain, all of those unpleasant mental and physical symptoms associated with heartbreak. And so if you want to learn more about this information was taken from a very famous TED Talk by Guy Winch called How to Fix a Broken Heart. And again, we are going to get to some solutions, but I'm going to pass the call back on over to Ariana, and she's going to talk about loneliness.
Yeah, so loneliness is profound, and we are really seeing the impact of how loneliness is literally killing people, whether it's overdose, whether it's suicide, or whether it's heart attack. We are wired for connection. We are wired to be a group. That's just in our neurowiring, and we know that. And so unfortunately, with the pandemic and with our society, we have been in the West taught so much to celebrate our individualism. And I come from that culture, and I love, being an individual, but I'm also learning that that comes at a high price, and that we actually deeply, deeply need one another. So another report for you, a report I found suggests that 36% of all Americans, including 61% of young adults and 51% of mothers with young children, feel serious loneliness. And not surprisingly, loneliness appears to have increased substantially since the outbreak of the global pandemic. And that was from a study, Loneliness in America, how the pandemic has deepened the epidemic of loneliness and what we can do about it. This is such an important conversation right now because our youth are suffering. The opiate crisis is killing more people than car crashes in the United States right now. Teen suicide and suicide rates are up. So it is just really important for us to all perhaps contemplate what would be the antidote of loneliness and how can we move out of this crisis that we're in. So when I looked at another study, there was a study conducted with Stanford students, and when asked what single activity brought them the greatest fulfillment, the most commonly given answer was spending time with friends or loved ones. So we were taught often that things will make us happy, that the newest gadget, that a new cool pair of shoes, our youth are taught that in particular. And the truth is that's not what's going to make us happy. What's going to make us happy is actually connecting with one another. It's not surprising that loneliness hurts. A brain imaging study showed that the feeling of being ostracized actually activates our neural pain matrix. So we actually feel pain from being ostracized. In fact, several studies show that ostracizing others hurts us as much as being ostracized ourselves. We can hypothesize that similarly, loneliness is associated with the pain matrix. And so some things to remedies for loneliness is connection, acknowledging that maybe you're hurting, maybe it's just due to loneliness, you're feeling lonely. To know, this is highly important, to know when to engage and when to disengage from our online world. Sometimes we go online, as we are right now, to connect, but sometimes scrolling through social media and comparing ourselves to other people only makes us feel more isolated, more alone, and more unworthy. Find volunteer opportunities, join a group or club to overcome loneliness, so to get connected and practice self-care. And then I was just going to add, personally, I also find that connecting to nature, connecting with animals, and connecting with other people really fulfills me. And so that's why we brought this conversation into our plant world too. We can connect with the plants, just like we did this at the beginning of the call with helichrysum, right? We can make friends with these plants, we can make friends with our animals, and that will also help us remind our souls, you're not this like lonely thing floating around on this earth, right? We're all connected. So that's really important.
Okay, so this kind of feeds right into what Ariana was saying. And there was actually a Harvard study that was done. It started in 1938. This is one of the longest studies, where 268 sophomores have been tracked. They started in the Great Depression, and they hoped that they would find a longitudinal study that would reveal clues to leading to healthy and happy lives. And what do you think is one of the most important things that leads to a long and happy life? More important than your cholesterol, more important than even maybe what you're eating for dinner. The most important thing is our relationships. When they gathered together everything they knew about them at the age of 50, it wasn't their middle-age cholesterol levels that predicted how they were going to grow old. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. The people who were the most satisfied in their relationship at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. So, it's kind of crazy that we have to do a study to know this, but this is a very fascinating study. And if you want to learn more about it, there is a TED Talk, What Makes a Good Life? Lessons from the Longest Study of Happiness. And there is a book to check out called Aging Well. But this just really, really reinforces the need for community, the need for family, the need for one another, the need for friends, and the need for healthy relationships in your life.
And so moving back to epigenetics, my favorite, when we talk about epigenetic modulation, so we promised you some hopeful remedies or ideas, right? And so we have talked a lot about, if you're listening to the podcast, we're looking at a slide, and we have talked a lot about in our culture, what is health, what makes us healthy. And on this slide, you have exercise, you have diet, you have your microbiome, social interactions on there, alternative medicine, therapeutic drugs, psychological state, seasonal correlations, financial status, drugs and abuse, and toxic chemicals, and the last one, disease and exposure, right? So you can contemplate some of these could go either way. Diet, right? If we're eating a lot of fast food every day, that's probably not going to help we know it's not going to help our bodies. If we're eating some really healthy, nutritious foods that aren't full of heavy metals and chemicals, we are giving our body proper nutrition. But this is not only so important just for when we think of health, this is crucial for our epigenetic modulation. So these are the things that we can control in life, right? There are a lot of things we can't control, like our DNA inheritance, but these are the things that we have agency over, that we can control and work with. And if you're rating yourself and you're thinking, wait, I eat really well, but maybe I've gotten a little too isolated, maybe just contemplate what part of your health care that you do for yourself, your self-care, you could improve upon and take small steps to do so. I wanted to share with you, it is well known that many organisms may respond to different environmental and nutritional factors by exhibiting phenotypic plasticity. One epitone is that honeybees grow to be either queens or workers, depending on whether they're fed royal jelly or bee bread. So just like our bees, right? We are hearing, okay, the queen gets fed royal jelly and she turns into, her body looks different, her role looks different. And this is true of humans too, metaphorically, and in actuality. Obviously, we're not going to be bees, but we could say, metaphorically speaking, do you want to be a queen bee or a worker bee? Let's contemplate what we're feeding ourselves in every way, what we're feeding our emotions, what we're feeding our soul, and what we're feeding our body. And I just wanted to share with you this one other point, which is one of the most exciting areas of epigenetic research involves understanding how environment, and that includes exposures to toxins or broad experiences such as chronic stress, may cause epigenetic changes, and whether or not these changes can be transgenerationally inherited. Can stress of the mother or father impact the health of a child before they are even conceived? So that was a little snippet I read about environmental impact on inheritance. And when I ask you that question, after just the information that you've received so far, I hope that you can answer it. I would say definitely yes, we have evidence that that is true. And then we can go ahead and move to the next slide. And then I just wanted to talk about, so when we were looking at the epigenetics slide prior, and again, if you're listening to the podcast, I read off some of the things that will affect us, right? Which was the stress, which was connection, which was what we were eating. Now we are comparing it to doTERRA's wellness pyramid. And what you might notice is that these are very similar, right? So when we look at our wellness pyramid, we have on the bottom nutrition and digestion. So let's think about nutrition and digestion a little bit more expansively of, yes, food and how we're assimilating our food, but what is our nutrition emotionally? What is mentally, spiritually, right? I binge watched like a Netflix series on serial killers, that was not very nutritious for my mental health. It was fascinating because I love psychology. However, it left me feeling really horrible. I had bad dreams, so I didn't digest the information well, right? So that's just an example of what I mean by nutrition. Then we have on top of that movement and metabolism. Then we have rest and manage stress, reduce toxicity, informed self-care, and proactive medical care, right? So if you're asking, how can I improve my epigenetics, not only for myself, but for future generations, we can start to bring in connection, healthy relationships, proper food and supplements, using our essential oils, right? You can start to paint a picture of what is going to help improve all of this, right? So an answer to that, I'm going to just read the slide for those on the podcast. How can I improve my epigenetics here? When you eat a healthy diet and exercise regularly, your body can change how much specific genes are expressed in two primary ways. by altering how the genome is packaged, inside the cell, and by placing chemical tags onto specific genes in the genome, right? So that's what we were speaking of earlier, in a little more detail. And I hope that you can add, so in this little excerpt that I got, they mentioned the diet and exercise, but I hope you will start filling in all of those other things that we mentioned as well. And then I also just wanted to speak to, go ahead, Aisha, and move to our protocols, and then I want to find notes and I can jump in on a little more information about changing our epigenetics too. I just have to find
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about our essential oils, and we are seeing that it's promising that essential oils actually have an effect on our epigenetics. There is a book called The Heart Code by Paul Purcell. He's a PhD, and he discusses how essential oils unlock cellular memory by activating certain parts of the brain where emotional trauma and emotions are stored, thus allowing them to be released from cellular memory. We know that when we smell an essential oil, it directly affects our limbic system. And also it can really impact us. Hold on, there's somebody I need to admit. It's hard to do that and talk at the same time. Hold on here. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I want to go over quickly some of the oils that we recommend working with if you are struggling with heartbreak, loneliness, and or just want to work on releasing stored emotions. I'm going to go over these very quickly. You can take a screenshot. We love frankincense. It is the oil of truth, and it is really great for helping you free your feelings. Rose is the oil of divine love. Eucalyptus is an oil of wellness, and it can really help you with release. Bergamot is an oil of self-acceptance, and I think many of us are aware you can take a drop of bergamot and put it on the inside, that point on your inner ear, and hold it to create a calmness in your limbic system. You can also place it on over your heart. Siberian fir is wonderful for generational healing. DDR prime for transformation. And then our console blend, which is very comforting and really a powerful blend if you're experiencing grief. And then also the forgive blend.
And I want to just jump in there, Aisha. I'll just read this briefly, but can you go back to the last slide really quick? I just wanted to mention that Aisha included the Heart Code, and Paul Purcell, PhD, discusses how essential oils unlock cellular memory by activating certain parts of the brain where emotional trauma and emotions are stored, thus allowing them to be released from cellular memory. So if that interests you, the Heart Code by Paul Purcell, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Okay, and our daily suggestions. So you might recognize that we always go back to these foundations, and these foundations are so important. And I've found that when you're struggling with depression, with loneliness, with heartbreak, it can actually be really difficult to do the things to take care of ourselves. And so sometimes it needs a little extra oomph to put this into action. So what we recommend is, again, the Lifelong Vitality Pack. Excuse me. This offers cellular nutrition and is such an important foundation for everything. I have found the adaptive system to be extremely supportive for both anxiety, depression, racing thoughts. I personally like to take one in the morning with copaiba, which actually we find makes the adaptive even a little bit more effective. You can just drop 3 drops of copaiba under your tongue and or take gel cap. And then also the DDR prime blend. In the PM, again, we recommend taking your second dose of the Lifelong Vitality Pack. Again, I like to take an adaptive before bed. If you experience racing thoughts at night, it can really help reduce that as a sign of anxiety. Again, the Copaiba and the Serenity. And many of us are finding the MetaPower system to be very healing for our nervous system. So the MetaPower system, I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. We've had calls about this and it's a whole system, but it is something that's going to help your metabolic and cardiovascular health. And one of the heavy hitters in the system is NAD+. And this is going to give your whole entire system a reboot. So it's going to help you with sleep. It's going to help your mental state. It's going to help with energy. And so if you are struggling with loneliness, heartbreak, depression, it can really help your healing process and really help you feel better. And then, of course, applying the essential oils. We made some suggestions, but you can also choose the ones that you relate to the most. And we have this quote here: what happens when people open their heart, they get better. And then I have one more slide I want to share. This is yet another study. And this is really fascinating because it is a relationship between NAD+ and gradual heart failure. It has long been known that sirtuins and NAD+ metabolism decline with aging, which is part of deregulated nutrient sensing and heavily related to mitochondrial dysfunction. This in-depth paper describes a specific way in which this depletion appears to be regulated to epigenetics alteration as well. While potential treatments were not explored in the study, it may be that KDM8 is a worthwhile target for restoring metabolic ability to the aging heart. And again, I want to point out that our MetaPower system is a delivery for NAD+. So that's just something to be aware of and to consider, and also to share if you know anybody struggling with heart conditions. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of our call for this section. I don't know if there's Ariana or Aaron or Dr. Josie, if there's anything you want to add before going to our next section.
I have just one brief thing to add. Definitely the MetaPower system. Yes, yes, yes. I also just want to give a shout out to DDR Prime, which is our it's our cellular damage and repair blend. And just a little more science just to inspire you. If you take your DDR Prime, you will be getting what they are speaking of here. Epigenetic mechanisms control gene expressions during normal development, and their inherent regulation may lead to human diseases, including unhealthy cell duplication, is what I'm going to say. Natural phytochemicals can largely modulate mammalian epigenome through regulation of mechanisms, excuse me, and proteins responsible for chromatin remodeling. Phytochemicals are mainly contained in fruit, seeds, and vegetables, as well as in foods and supplements. These compounds act as powerful cellular antioxidants and anti-carcinogens. And so again, that DNA, the DDR Prime, if you aren't taking it, I would just highly suggest consider taking that daily for your cellular health. And thank you. I know we went a little over, but we just had such a juicy topic. And so now we're going to transition into the business portion of our call. And I didn't know if Josie or Aaron, if you want to add anything too.
All good. Thank you, ladies. That was so much great information and so relevant to the times that we're in. So I hope you all feel empowered to start to use some of these ideas on your own heart health, but also bring it out to friends and family. In this section, we talk about sharing doTERRA products so that you can earn an income. Maybe you want to pay for your own products. I know that every time we have one of these calls, my shopping list gets bigger and bigger. Do you feel the same way? Like, I need it all. I have a family of 4, so my husband and my 2 kids. And if we were to be ordering everything that we wanted from doTERRA, it would easily be over $400 a month, right? So I'm so grateful that there is this opportunity to share the products, which I do naturally, and earn an income so that I can offset the cost of my family's healthcare system, which truly is doTERRA. That is our healthcare system. That combined with our wonderful grandma, Sandra Freeman. She does our energy medicine healing. And then of course we go to the doctor when we need things like broken bones and medication. So this is really what the doTERRA business opportunity can be. It can be that pathway of first getting your products paid for. Secondly, you can start to earn extra income, maybe an extra $500 to $1,000 a month, which really can help to offset different expenses in your life, build up an emergency plan, or save for that family vacation. And then if you are consistent and you give this business 3 to 5 years of being plugged in, doing the work, sharing, it can become a residual income for you. And upwards to, the sky's the limit, 6 figures and beyond. What I wanted to talk about today, which is in connection to relationship, is what happens when we hear no, and how it's actually a vital part of sharing doTERRA, and something that I think if we take the time to prepare ourselves for and to switch our mindset around, we can have a much better experience. We all know what it's like to be super excited about something. Maybe it's when you first started using the oils or doTERRA, and you go to tell your best friend or your sister or your brother or a coworker about these amazing products, and oh my gosh, they're so incredible, only to have them tell you no, or they're not interested. Or even worse for me is when you get ghosted, when someone isn't straightforward and just says no to you. Oftentimes this experience can stop us, slow us down, or even make us question our excitement. And as your business coach on the Visionary Leaders team, I would much rather you understand and be prepared for the vitality of hearing no. And if we can switch our mindset around it, we can actually let it give us power. So instead of feeling like, oh, it's horrible when someone tells me no, I can't stand it, it feels terrible. What if we could actually celebrate every time we heard a no? And so there's a few mindset shifts that I have found to be helpful. The first one is to really ask ourselves, why is it so horrible when someone says no to us? Because isn't it great that that person knows what they want or what they don't want, and that they can clearly communicate their boundaries? Really, when I dissected in myself, and I'd be curious to know what it is for you, maybe you can put it in the chat. When someone tells me no, and I feel myself become triggered by that, upset by that, what I realize is I'm not actually hearing them say no. What I'm hearing them say is, I don't like you. Or you're not a part of my community. And it's so interesting because if I look at it with true black and white eyes, they just told me no, and their reasons could be varied. But they're not actually, I've never had anyone tell me that they don't like me. And so I really have to remind myself that that may not be true, but also honor that that is my fear. And that's part of why it's so good to come to these calls every week, because every week you can be held up and bolstered by people who are as crazy about oils and natural health as you are, which can be helpful because you have a community. So if there's someone that you're introducing the doTERRA world to and they tell you no, you can remind yourself that's okay, it's just not for them. But I actually already have this community of people who love natural wellness and plants and plant healing. So that's the first mindset switch, is just check yourself and ask yourself, what am I making no mean? and remind yourself that you're making it mean something. And the only way to know what it really means is to get curious for that person, which can sometimes be a great thing to do. The more questions you ask, the more curiosity that you express, the more you're able to know what's really going on with them. And you might discover that they had a bad experience with network marketing. Or maybe you find out that they're a science-based person and they've never seen the research. Or you might find out that I've had a lot of people think that they have to order $100 a month, that there's no option for them to order what they want. So sometimes that's the objection you get to. So instead of taking no personally, get curious about the no and ask more questions. The other mindset shift that I've had around no's, which really helps me, is to know the industry standards and to know your personal numbers. So this is probably going to blow your mind. It blows my mind every time I realize it. The industry standard is if you reach out to 100 people, 3 will say yes. That's if you reach out with no training, no sales experience, just that the average person, we say, yeah, reach out to 100 people. Only 3 say yes. That's in the network marketing industry. Now, my own personal numbers after 14 years of experience in sales and lots of investment in sales trainings and coming to this call every week and learning from all these incredible people, I personally know that anyone that I come into contact with and we spend any significant time with each other, they're going to get oils. But if I'm just cold asking people, would you like to check out oils? Would you like to check out oils? I have about a 50% no rate. So about half of the people that I ask say no. So you have to figure out your own numbers and know that you can improve it with more training. But the mindset shift is, well, instead of being upset by a no, what if you could celebrate every no you had? Because then it brings you closer to your yeses. So maybe if your personal rate is you talk to 3 people and 1 says yes, but 2 say no, you can switch your approach and go, what if I celebrate every no? And you make the no something good. It's getting you 1 step closer to the yes. You're celebrating the person's boundary and that they're clear about what they want. And you're also getting curious, right? To find out if their no is really, really something else. You're going to hear no in this business. It's part of it. And if you can find a way to not take the no so personally, and if you can find a way to celebrate the no, and if you can learn to get curious and help people overcome their objections, then when you hear no, it won't be so upsetting and it won't stop your forward action. So in the last few minutes of the call, I'd love to have a discussion around this. See if anyone has any questions, any other comments about hearing no.
Erin, I'd love to chime in on this one. I think this is such an awesome topic. A few things that come to mind is that we sometimes have to check ourselves that we don't say no in our own head before we even ask. Because sometimes we say no for somebody before we've even asked them, or we decide what they can and can't afford if they want to buy a kit, or we put so much of our own anxieties and insecurities onto other people, and then we operate from that place. So that's something to be very mindful as you look at your list of 100 people and you think, oh no, they would never be interested. Just check in around that. The second thing I want to bring attention to, and then I'll pass it over to you, Jost, is sometimes no means not right now. And I have experienced this firsthand. I've experienced people that have said no for several years. And then one day they're ready and they want to jump in and they want to get oils. And even those people that have said no for years ended up building a business. And so you just, you always want to respect that space with somebody, but you can still hold out and sort of hold them on your list, hold the vision for them, and know that, down the road, they might pop in and say yes. Josie, what did you want to add?
Hey, is my sound up? Oh, yeah. Yes, I wanted to add on both of those things, Aisha, that I think we can all agree that most of us and many of us here are pretty kind of empathic and we're very feeling people. And so that can be even more intense when you're talking, and that what Aisha talked about, that self-talk and coming up with feelings that you feel like you're feeling the other person is having, and then like answering those questions in your own head or putting out those objections onto people. So I think that tends to be something that more emotive people do initially in our heads, is that whole thing of talking ourselves out of things, because we're picking up on so much and it gets confusing when we're nervous. So I just second and third that's a tendency, and it's okay, but then to just really work on it with yourself. And I wanted to give that example of, Dr. Mika Carew is one of my best friends, and we always support each other with our stuff. And so I was like, way back in the day, 10, 11 years ago, I was doing this essential oil thing. And she was one of the first people to get an account with me because she was supporting me, and she wanted to be a supportive friend. She didn't want to do the business, but she ended up on my front line because I didn't know what I was doing. And thank goodness. So about 3.5 years later, she just had her account on my front line because she was a good friend. And she ordered oils every once in a while. And I didn't bug her about that at all. She called me up and she said, okay, I feel really good about, my Chinese medicine and where I'm at with, she was studying a whole line of things, and she was in depth with that for the last 3 years. And she's like, okay, I'm ready to learn about the oils. What do I do? Come on, tell me. Come on, I'm ready. And I was like, oh, okay. And there we go. And I think she's on the call today. So if you just support people where they are, you let them be who they are, and they let you be who you are, you will be surprised.
Yeah, Josie, you bring up a really good point that I think is something we can hear over and over again and remember to remind all of us, which is this is a slow business. This is not a get rich quick business. This is a get rich slow business. And the richness comes in many different avenues. It includes money, but it also comes in friendships. It comes in personal development. So something that I see can really hurt us is when we start our doTERRA business and we get super excited about, like, we go to a convention or something and we see all the diamonds walk across stage and we go, oh, I want to be a diamond and I'm going to do it in 1 year, which that absolutely happens for some people. But that didn't happen for me. It took me about 4 years to become a diamond. And so I think it can be really good for us to manage our expectations around this. And it can be as simple as when you first start your doTERRA business and you schedule your first class, and you might be thinking everyone's going to come. There's going to be like 20 people there. It's going to be so great. And they're all going to buy and they're all going to get it. And then we have that first class and 3 or 4 come and 1 or 2 buy. And it can be so easy to think, I was a failure. This doesn't work. And the truth is that as long as you have one person that's talking to you and wants to know about the oils, and you stay consistent and you do your class every week and you talk to people every day and you come to the community call and you go to special events and you get yourself to convention when it's right for you, as long as you stick with it and you keep doing it, it might take a couple of years till the riches come, but they will. And it's when we have this expectation of it happening overnight or being really big or being really fast because maybe we saw somebody else do it that way, that then we get discouraged and we don't take action for a while. So just a little reminder about consistency, going the distance, giving it a couple of years and staying in the game, teaching and inviting and trying not to take it personally when people say no, getting curious and being there like Josie was for Mika when somebody is ready. Yeah, go ahead, Aisha.
So in reference to what we talked about today, one of the topics being loneliness, this in itself is an epidemic that I think is really come to the forefront with the pandemic. And one of the most powerful ways to build your business, I believe, and one thing that we have continued to focus on is building community. And so we have this community every single Monday. I know we meet online, but it means so much to all of us to see all of you here. And please know when you're not here, you're actually missed because we know who joined us. And when you're not here, you are missed. But what my invitation to you is how can you create community wherever you are? And that can be having something in your home. It could be once a month. It could be twice a month. It could be, making an oil blend. It could be having a class. It could be having a self-care day. You could take any topic that we teach on and use our material and teach on it yourself. And so that continual building community and then invite your community to our greater community. And from doing that, from that invitation of inviting to community, can then turn those no's to yeses. Because as Dr. Josie said about Mika, as Erin knows about me, as I know about Ariana, none of us showed up in the beginning and said, yes, I want to build a business. I think every single one of us actually said no before we said yes. Did any one of us say yes first, like right out of the bat? I know some people do, but we were all no's. I was a no to Erin. Yeah, I would love some of those oils. I'm not doing the business. Ariana was a no to me for a year in. And then I said, hey, there's something here. Why don't you check this out? Dr. Josie was I'm going to support you, Aisha, because I love you and you're my friend. And I'll go to that event with you. Not that I want to, but because I will. And here she is. So please know, and maybe you are a no as well. So we can't be so afraid of that no, because it's sometimes just part of the process. And no is not a rejection of you're a horrible person and I hate you and I never want to hear from you again.
Yeah, it's really good for us to remember stats too, because there's actually some stats around sales. And it's that people need 15 touches before they're ready to say yes. So it's also a reminder that when we're getting not a yes, not a no, but a kind of no, you're not grabbing the person's attention, that it might mean that they just need some touches. And I was also reminded of this other aspect the other day, which is there's this product, it's sold through a network marketing model. And there's been a stranger on Instagram trying to get me to buy it for over a year, right? And she's great. She reaches out to me, she follows up, even though I've been pretty clear, like I'm not interested. And then a friend of mine got this product and was like gushing about it. And I watched myself go, oh, maybe I should check it out. And it was so interesting because what I noticed is it was the relationship. It was when someone that you like, you trust, introduces you to something and their infectious enthusiasm about it, you're sometimes more likely to take note. So if you're connecting with someone and you're talking to them about oils and they're kind of telling you no, or they're ignoring you, ask yourself, how nourished is this relationship? How well do I know this person? And you can even back off all the oil talk and be like, do you just want to go hang out? Do you want to go have a cup of tea? And now you need to be authentic here, right? Because if you don't actually want to be friends with this person, You shouldn't go develop a relationship with them just so you can sell them oils. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the relationship, start with the relationship first. And when you nourish your relationships and people come to know you and like you and trust you, they're going to be more likely to take a look at what you're excited about. Yes, Josie. And then we're at the top of the hour. So
I know we're at the top of the hour. That was so great. So true. I did in the comments, Erin, exactly. We all listen to our friends. If they come and they have a story and they're talking about something, we believe it and take it in differently. It's so true. But I just wanted to speak to the chat too. Maria was talking about how she started an in-person community gathering called Aroma Tea. And her next one is March 11th. And she serves tea and talks about essential oils and emotions. And other people are like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. And I just want to second that, y'all and Maria. It's a great idea. I have done this in the past, and I did it with Diane Del Rey's when she had a studio over here in Vancouver. And for a year, she did that. And that was part of developing her business. And we would just have 3 teas. We would make up essential oil teas, and we would just serve the teas, and it would be on sofas and in an hour. And in those teas, it was all the top 10 oils. And we would just talk about the oils, and you could give a full class in just talking about the teas and what people were drinking, and people love it. So
yes,
way to go.
yes, yes. Okay, everyone, we've come to the end of our Monday call. Please come back next week because we're going to have such a great topic about preparing your digestive system for the best health it could possibly be in, and even preparing it for cleansing if that's something you decide to do in March. So March is just going to be a great month on this call. If you don't already, get on our text alert so you get that alert 30 minutes before the call, and get on our email list. All of that can be found at hellovisionary.life. And if you're listening to the podcast, please leave us a review. Please subscribe so you always get the alerts, and feel free to share this episode with somebody that needs to hear it today. We love you all. Have a great week.